over to. They were born in Sweden?
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Over.
Around the turn of the century? Is that what
It was about then. Yeah.
Now, did your dad meet your mother here in the United States?
He must have.
Yeah. What got him started with what we know as Blackstone? But how did that get going? How did?
Well, there was the fellow from Buffalo that came to town and said that he had an invention, radiator, that he wanted to find somebody to make.
Mm-hmm.
And he came and talked to 2 or 3 of the fellows there in Jamestown, and they got together and thought they'd give this thing a try. Well, the goddamn thing wasn't any good. And so what they had to do, they had to fire him and get another engineer to come to town here, or was in town, I don't know which. And then they set the thing up and got going on making a radiator, because of this fellow from Buffalo came in. He was supposed to have had a lot of connections with the other radiator plant and Buffalo. I can't remember the name of it now, but he was just a heister, that's all, and they had to get rid of him and get another engineer in here, and then they started making it and got another radiator design and started making samples and so forth, and finally started making a few radiators.
Was that right?
Yeah.
Now, what was your dad, when he came over here from Sweden, what kind of business was he into at first?
He was, his first job when he got here was peeling bark down in Pennsylvania.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Was it near Austin, Pennsylvania?
No, it was near Wilcox, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
But that was the first job he had. He came in from New York on Sunday and went to work in the woods down there peeling bark the next day.
Now, how long was he down in Wilcox, Pennsylvania?
Gosh, I don't know exactly how long. He was in Wilcox. I don't think he ever told me exactly how long.
Yeah.
I remember that, but he was for a while, and then he and another fellow that was down there peeling bark, they went into Johnsonburg and bought the hotel there in Johnsonburg.
Mm-hmm.
That started in the hotel business there.
And then from the hotel business, what did he get into?
I don't know.
What brought him to Jamestown was he...
I was trying to think of that too. I don't know why he came to Jamestown.
Mm-hmm.
But in those days they just kept moving around a little bit to see if they could get something that was a little better than what they had before.
Yeah. Was he ever? Did he have Did he have a liquor store, or was he?
Yeah, he did.
In Jamestown?
Yeah.
Was he with the partners with anybody at that time?
Yeah. How do you know more about this than I do?
No, I know very little.
Yeah, he was. I forgot what the guy's name was now. Peterson or something like that.
Yeah. How did he connect up with Gus Lawson?
Well, they just said if this radiator business was going to go ahead, why they got together. A fellow that was in the shoe business on the corner of Main and Third there, Charlie Anderson and Gus Lawson and my dad. They got together and set up this company to make radiators.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it really got started.
It got started, and then was that their sole business? Was radiators?
Yeah.
So it was your dad then, and Gus Lawson were the principals.
Yeah.
Behind that. Then from there comes Reg Lenna. And when were you born, Reg?
1912.
1912. And tell me a little bit about your education. Did you go to Jamestown High School?
Yeah, I went through Jamestown High School. Then I went to Manlius School, and then on to Lehigh, and graduated as an engineer from Lehigh.
And once you graduated, now let's see, that would have been, were you involved in the a service at all?
Yeah, I was in service for about 4 years.
Tell me about that. Were you drafted or did you enlist?
Well, no, at that time, if I went through, I got my initial commission from Lehigh.
Mm-hmm.
In those days, you could go and get a commission there.
Mm-hmm.
And then when about shortly after I got that, I volunteered to go into regular duty,
Mm-hmm.
Army duty, because there was no way of getting promoted if I just sat around and did nothing about it. There was no way of getting promoted in the Army without going into active duty.
Right.
And I was in active duty about it. 4 or 5 months, and they just said, well, we got you, so we're going to keep you. So that's how I joined the Army.
And the war had started, right?
Oh, yes.
And
I was sitting down in the ballpark in Washington on a Sunday watching a football game when the news started coming through of we were getting involved, and he called out, kept calling out all these higher ranking officers in both the Army and the Navy while we were sitting there watching the football game,
wow.
telling them to report to their offices. And of course, the word got around to us peons after the ball game that you better be the hell available early the next morning to get into the service.
So this would have been December 1st, or December 7th, 1941, right? That's Pearl Harbor. Right.
Well, it was Pearl
Sunday, right?
Pearl Harbor was when we were sitting down there watching a ball game when this news started filtering back.
Wow. Were you apprehensive? Were you scared? You know, here you've been asked now to
No, I wasn't scared. I was too dumb to be scared.
So now you've got the word. You're at the stadium. Pearl Harbor has occurred. The next day, you hear President Roosevelt probably on the radio.
Probably, I don't remember. But we had to report to our, I don't know whether we went to a company, where we went. We had to report the next day, early the next day, and then they got their hands on us at that time, and there was no way of going any place except with them.
Yeah. Now, did you then? What was the training? Now that you know that you're in the war, what's the training before they send you off to Europe? What was your?
Well, they never sent me to Europe because I got the general that I was working for in the there in Washington. He wouldn't let me go. I got my orders. I don't know how many times they came through for me to go. He said, "No, I'm not going to let you go. You can do me more good right here with your background in engineering and so forth. You can do me more good and the country more good here, working here in this country, rather than going over to Europe and getting tangled up with that. So I'm not going to let you go." And he canceled my orders.
Okay. What would you work on here? What was the projects you worked on here?
Oh, I was in different projects. This general that I was working for, he was the top general in providing material for the service, and that's I was working for him, and then he had several generals working under him, and I was working for any of those guys that needed somebody that they could talk to about what they should do and so forth, and we got the thing built up that way. And I think there were about 5 or 6 generals that I was working for. General, I don't remember what the whole thing was now. I have to look it up in some of my old papers. But I was working with him, and we were providing material for the service, what we were doing, and when they once got a hold of you like that way, that's where you stayed.
Yeah. So you were in Washington.
Right, all the time.
All the time. And you kind of worked as an engineer for them. That was your role in with the Army. You were in the Army then?
Yeah. Ordnance.
And then the war ends. Then you're mustered out.
Yeah.
Oh. I need, because Raleigh Kidder mentioned it. George wants me to mention. Tell me about the Manhattan Project.
Well, I can't tell you much about it. I wasn't supposed to tell you anything about it anyway. But
50 years has lapsed, so the statute of limitations has come and gone.
Well, we still.
What was your involvement in it as a?
Getting machine tools for the Manhattan Project. We get any buddy in this country, any manufacturer in this country who needed any help in getting certain types of machine tools. to further this Manhattan project, they'd come to us for help. And I remember taking away about over a dozen machine tools from I think it was Ford Motor Company that I stole them from.
Okay.
And I had the authority to go to anybody that I wanted to or needed to go to get these machine tools. And they were these. I think it was Ford that I took about 20 or 30 machine tools. They'd stashed them away in their factory, and figuring that they were going to need them. And when I found out where they were, why I went and took them away from them.
What did they tell you when the project was going on? How much did you know was actually occurring at the time?
Very little.
Very little?
Yeah. All I did primarily was get into the machine tool and so that they could make the parts and things for the Manhattan project.
They didn't necessarily tell you what the end goal was supposed to be?
Nope.
I don't think many people knew that, did they? The scientists?
No, they kept that quite quiet all along. But we had, I was at the end of it where I had helped to get them the machine tools to build the parts that they needed to build for the Manhattan project.
Mm-hmm. And you had a lot of power to go right into any company and to basically
Commandeer
commandeer it.
the machine tools, that's right.
Did you run into resistance?
Well, I never was asked to come back again.
Yeah. But you basically, obviously nobody's volunteered. Ford Motor didn't volunteer that they had this equipment.
We
You knew about
we
it somehow.
found out from the machine tool manufacturer that these tools went to Ford, and so that's where we went to commandeer the machine tools.
Just as an aside, did you have to pay for it? I mean, you took the machinery and equipment from them.
I don't know. I don't think we paid. And I didn't have anything to do with whether we paid for them or not. My job was just get the tools into their plant so they can make the parts that were needed. And I don't know what anything more about the pay for them or anything else.
So in August of 1945, they dropped the atom bomb. Did you have a sense that you were part of that?
Well, I knew something was going to happen because all these generals were running all over for the months before that, getting their equipment lined up and so forth. But I didn't know very little about what it was and where they were going.
Yeah. When it finally happened, they dropped the atom bomb. You read about it in the newspaper or hear about it on the radio. Was there any sense of, gee, Reg Lenna you were some part of that process. If you hadn't gotten the machinery, they wouldn't have built the tools. And
That's right.
yeah. Did you agree with Truman when he did that? When he dropped the atom bomb, did you say, good for Harry Truman?
I forgot what the hell I said. Probably said you go over to the Manor Court and have another beer.
That's terrific. So you leave the Army. Your dad has the business here.
Yeah.
And is it known as Blackstone at that time?
Yeah, I guess it was.
Did you know that once you got done with the Army that you'd be coming back here to Jamestown? Did your dad want you back?
Yeah, he was after me to get back there as soon as I could get released from the service. Why he wanted me to come back here and get into the war work around here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is that something you wanted to do? Is that your desire to get into the business?
Well, it had sort of been shoved at me from some time back that I was the one that should come back here and help him because he was just overloaded and his health was not as good as it should have been. So he wanted me to come back and because of that, why I naturally wanted to come back.
I should know this, but I'm embarrassed to even ask the question. Do you have any brothers or sisters?
Yeah, I had
Sister, I know.
I had a brother Harry and a sister Helen. They're both gone now, but I had those two.
Was Harry in the business also?
Yeah.
And Helen married Joe.
Yeah.
And Joe was in the business.
Yeah.
Now, what was Harry's position at Blackstone? What was his role?
Well, he was. Let me see what.
Was he in the kind of the financial end of it, or
Yeah, he was that, and then in the purchasing
purchasing?
end of it. Yeah. But he wasn't the hardest worker in the business, and so it wasn't long before the head of the company shoved me along.
So you come back here around 1947, I think I read. You came back to work for Blackstone?
I don't know when it was.
Having given a few speeches on your behalf, I learned a little bit along the way.
Yeah.
And so it was, the company at the time was being run by your dad. Was Gus Lawson then?
He was in the company.
In the company.
Yeah.
And
Gus was more of the sales manager.
Mhm.
He was out getting the business from the automotive manufacturers in Detroit there.
and your dad was more the manufacturing side of it?
That's right.
And then along comes Reg. And what did your dad have you, what did he start you in as?
In the tool room.
Tool room?
Yeah. And then I moved along from there.
Did he, I'm always curious as to how fathers deal with this. I never wanted to work for my dad, so I was fearful of it. But was it your hope that your dad would kind of get you exposed to all parts of the radiator business?
Yeah.
And did you work in those various parts?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, my brother's dead and gone now, but he wasn't the hardest working member of the company at that time, so my dad was pushing me all the time.
Mm-hmm. What was your favorite part of that place?
Oh, I don't think I had really a favorite part. I just went and worked wherever it was necessary to have somebody working, that's all.
Mm-hmm. What was your least favorite? That's the question. What didn't you like about the, did you have the foundry then also? Did you have Malibu?
Yes, we had the foundry.
Did you work there at the foundry?
Not directly,
Mhm.
but I had a connection with the foundry,
Mhm.
and so I got to know a bit about the foundry business too.
Oh, sure. Just a quick story. When I came back from college, and you know Lyle, I had 3 weeks between coming back from college and working for the State Department of Environmental Conservation. And I thought, hey, great, I'll have 3 weeks, I can go to the beach, kind of relax. No way. So my dad called your friend Ellis Knobloch, Ellis and Bronze, and said, here, take him. Take him. I don't care if you pay him at all, just take him, keep him busy. So Nobby put me in the foundry part of Jamestown Bronze. And I got to tell you, I was never so glad when my other job actually started. What a tough business. You know, that's
Well, I got out of the service and came back to Jamestown here, and came back. I don't know when I got out of college, graduated from college, came back and immediately was put into the washing machine business because we were making parts for the service at that time, and so I left the service and immediately went to work for Blackstone the next day.
I'll be back. When did Blackstone get into the washing machine business? They started off radiators, right?
Yeah.
And then how did they get into washing machines?
Well, what's his name? Head of the bank, the Union Trust Company here in Jamestown. My dad was on the board there, and the president of that bank asked him, or forced him to get into the washing machine business because the company in town here was having a hell of a tough time, and so that's how he got into the washing machine business, and went on from there because there was washing machines, and then there were dryers and various units that came along, and that's how we got into the appliance end of it.
Mm-hmm. And that was a big part of your business, wasn't it?
It was a pretty good sized part of it, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, tell me, when did your dad sort of turn over the business to you and say, it's time for you to take over?
He never did that officially, but he kept pushing me along in the business, learning it all the time, and learning more about it, and getting more experience in it, both from the operating end of it in Jamestown here, and he kept shoving me all the time, trying to force me to do more work for him.
Yeah. Your dad passed away when?
I'd have to look up the date of that. I don't remember the exact date. I just remember I was over the hospital the night that he died.
Mm-hmm.
But what the date was, I wouldn't know that offhand without going through my records and taking a look.
Had he been ill? Had
Yes.
your dad been ill?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Then you became the heir. You were the heir to the. You took over then,
Yeah.
and so you were involved in Blackstone for almost well over 40 years, right, Reg?
It was quite a while.
Yeah. What made you first think about doing international work? You know,
I got mad at the unions in Jamestown. Decided to hell with it. I'll go do business where I can do business. That's when I started in the international. I was first starting off with a plant in Canada, and then moving along and getting into the foreign countries too, because I could see that the chances were better for the business in the foreign countries than they were around here, because the unions they took the attitude that when I came into plants around here in Jamestown, we had been having some problem with them, and they were giving us a kind of a hard time. And I figured, hell, I'll go someplace where I have a free hand to push the business along in these various foreign countries. And that's when I got into the foreign end of it.
You had sort of a long relationship with unions here.
Yeah. Long and unsatisfactory one.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. Were they in the? Was there a union when you came back here in 1947?
Yeah.
There was.
Yeah. And of course, these guys thought, well, here's this young squirt coming in here, and we'll take care of him. And that's when the battle lines were laid out.
You had some long strikes, and you hung tough.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's when you started. You then had options to shift business really from the United States to Canada. And
Well, we set up a plant in Canada, first of all, and then we got into other foreign countries. Why? That was just a case of setting up a business in these various other foreign countries.
Volvo. What was your relation? How did you get started with Volvo?
Well, my dad started with Volvo before we got into the war in Sweden, and we were making radiators and shipping them from Jamestown, and then when it got too hard to do that, and there were too many roadblocks in the way, we just set up an operation in Sweden. That's all it started.
Now Volvo wasn't very big when you first started working with them back in the 40s. They were not a big operation, were they?
No, they were making primary radiators for their own use for trucks in Sweden, and we came into the truck picture at that time, since truck radiators from Jamestown to Sweden.
Did you ever have an ownership interest in Volvo? Did your family have an ownership interest?
No, we never did.
Mm-hmm.
No.
You've been sometimes a very quiet quiet, but a real prime mover behind a lot of interesting things that have occurred in Jamestown. Tell me how you got started in the radio business.
Cy Coleman needed some help from one of the banks in town to get some money to keep operating and improve it and increase the business, and I helped him do that. And that's how I became a part owner of the WJTN there years ago.
You helped them out. You really did.
Yeah.
What other businesses were you involved in?
Well, of course, we had plants in Mexico, and we have about 4 plants, I guess, in Sweden. And we moved around in these countries where we saw an opportunity to do business. We ended up with a plant in Finland and 2 or 3 in Sweden before we got through.
Georgia?
Statesboro, Georgia, didn't you?
Yeah.
Foundry?
Yeah, we had a foundry down in Statesboro.
Fantastic. Were you involved in the original McDonald's, too?
We, Cy, it was Cy that I was involved in the original McDonald's here in Jamestown. And in fact, the radio station was the first one there in Jamestown that got into the hot dog business and so forth.
Really?
Here in Jamestown.
Hot dog business?
Well, hot dog, whatever.
Yeah.
They made, sold their hot dogs. I've forgotten now. Any of the.
But you were one of the investors along with Cy in McDonald's.
Yeah.
Any other businesses kind of locally that I know Clark Laboratories involved in?
Yeah.
Any other ones that you were kind of quietly behind the scenes on?
Oh. You quietly get behind quite a few different things in the communities such as Jamestown, and I play that part every now and then.
Yeah. Well, it's been terrific. You've also been very politically active behind the scenes.
Well, my father was more so
Was
than
he?
I was, and but then when he died, why they were anxious that I get more active in that, the political end of it. But I never was active to the same extent that he was in the politics around here.
Republican?
Of course.
For the record.
Is there any other?
50 years from now, when somebody sees that tape, they ought to know that. George, no, I know, and you know it's Republican. And you've had a chance to interact with politicians of power. Who were some of those folks who maybe made an impression on you, good or bad?
Oh, I don't know. I never pushed the political end of it too much because I had enough to do just in my own business without getting too active in that. And I didn't care to do it. I was asked to, and they tried to push me into it, certain people around here, but I didn't fall for it.
Mm-hmm.
No.
You want some more water?
Well, I probably get some.
If you get some
we need some more. We'll get you some more.
Yeah.
Tell me about your involvement, maybe your dad's involvement with the Sportsmen's Club.
Well, he was one of the original members of the Sportsmen's Club. He and I remember what's his name, Floyd. He was the plumber here in Jamestown. They set the club up there, and then my dad came along and was president of it for a long time, and then when he died, the boys started pushing me along in the thing up there, and I've been rather active in it ever since.
And a wonderful club it is. I had heard that your dad, there were certain times when the Sportsman's Club ran into some hard financial times, and your dad had to either lend him money or get involved in that. What happened there?
Well, I don't know just what he did. He would go ahead and do what he thought was necessary when something like that arose. And as far as we never had any big company meetings about the thing. He just went ahead and did it.
Yeah.
That's all.
That's terrific. I'd also heard someplace along the way that Blackstone owned the Bullfrog Hotel.
That is true. They had to. They were having a hard time finding fellows who they could get to work in the Bullfrog or in the foundry here in Jamestown, and so they couldn't find any place. But they went to Buffalo and they corralled a bunch of fellows to come to Jamestown from Buffalo, and they had to have a place for them to live, and so they bought the Bullfrog Hotel so they'd have a place for these guys to live.
How long did you have that?
Oh, it was quite a few years.
Okay.
It was just, I can't remember now how long ago. It wasn't too many years ago that we sold it, but we had it for a long time, but it was purchased primarily, in fact, entirely for housing foundry workers over there.
Did you then feed them at the restaurant or the bar area?
I don't know where the hell I ate. Probably the closest and cheapest place they could find for themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't try to get into the cafeteria business for them. We provided a place for them to sleep, so they'd, we could keep a pretty good hold of them and get them into the foundry to work regularly. Anyway, that's all we were interested in.
Yeah. So when you list all of your accomplishments, Reg, owner and proprietor of the Bullfrog Hotel.
Yeah, we've kidded a lot about that Bullfrog over the years.
Did you know that?
Nope, never heard that one before.
What? I don't think there's any more. What? 36 years ago that we sold the Bullfrog.
As you were going through your relationships with the unions, back on the end there for a second, and having been with Sherry, law firm, and seeing the negotiations, but I'm was fairly young at it. Did you get to a point, Reg, where in dealing with the unions that were you fearful for yourself? Was there a sense that it got so bad and so unsatisfactory that that this, the labor unions tended to have some rough manners. Did you fear for yourself at all?
No.
No?
No. Sure, we had some sharp talks and things when we were going through various strikes.
Sure.
With them, I settled one strike. This is for the radiator end of it up at the Sportsman's Club, and I entered into various things like that along the way, but I never was worried about anything as far as my personal feelings concerned. But it was because of it got so unsatisfactory. That's why I set up the first foreign plant up in Canada, and then went on from there to the other various countries and set up plants because I found it was more advantageous to have these plants in these various countries than it was trying to fight these bastards here in Jamestown.
Yeah. You must reflect on and see now that the union movement, just generally in Jamestown, is a lot weaker than it ever was.
Yeah.
Taking your water away.
Yeah.
Okay. That's right. That's fine.
If you find anything any better out there, why, help yourself, George.
That's right. Now, you had a son,
Yeah.
Jimmy, and you brought him into the business.
Yeah.
Was it your hope that at some point he might progress to the point that you progressed to with your dad?
Yes. I had hoped that he would and would help to run these various plants that had in various places in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Thank you, George.
You're welcome.
It's nice of you.
Yeah, we'll put that. It's a cameo. That was George Campbell.
Nice of you to treat me in my own house.
Yeah. You're starting to run dry there, so.
Yeah.
What was the kind of the turning point when Reg Lenna, who you accomplished so much in Blackstone, where was there one day or one moment where you finally came home and turned to Betty and said, "I think it's time to sell"?
Well, I guess I did, but I can't remember just how it happened or when it did happen.
Was it a long, drawn-out process where you said, "Gee, maybe," or did?
Well, I had been thinking about it for quite a long period of time before I finally went ahead and did something about it.
Mm-hmm. The day you signed the papers and you finally literally turned over the keys, what were your feelings?
Relief. Yeah.
And no regrets?
No. No, I've gotten into too many other things to keep me busy since then. That I had no regrets.
What has Reg Lenna been getting into since you sold the business?
Well, Clark Brothers was the major one that I've gotten into, and various other things around, not nothing of too major consequences.
Mm-hmm.
But
And you set up a foundation.
yeah, and we have now decided to liquidate the foundation and get out of it, because it's too. If you don't have a staff that can work on the thing for you, why it gets to be too much of a problem. You have people hounding you all the time about wanting to get something from you, that I got a little sick of it.
Yeah.
I figured that, I'd lived too long without that I wasn't interested in that.
If you had to reflect back on 2 or 3 things that you're the most proud of, that Reg Lenna says, gee, I want people to remember me by, what would that be?
Well, I don't know if anything that was great.
Well, I think a lot of things were great. But you had to say you were proud, that you're the happiest about, that you were able to accomplish certain things.
You going to go, George?
I gotta take off, Rich. Gotta take Jane down to the hospital.
Oh.
She volunteers there. It's not-
Oh, yeah, okay.
Thank you, George.
Thank you.
Do I, as far as I can't think of anything particularly that I was proud of or anything.
You're too humble.
Well, I have never been, in all the years I've been fooling around, I have never thought of things for my own good. And so, consequently, anything that would look like it might cause me any problem, I'd run from it rather than get into it.
Exactly. How did you get involved in the Civic Center project?
Well, when we sold out a couple of these things and had a little money, why, that's when we decided we better try and do something worthwhile for the community.
Who approached you on the idea? Was that Phil Morris?
I don't know who did. When you have a foundation, there's always somebody that's approaching you on a dozen things. You know how those things go.
I know it.
But the majority of the things you step away from instead of step up to.
Now you've spent, your focus has been places like St. Bonaventure?
Yes, I've helped them along some, and of course the Civic Center here in town. But you can, when you once get started in some of these things, nobody ever leaves you alone.
With the Civic Center, you've once you're part of it, you're right. You probably feel like you're always going to be a part of that.
That's
Civic.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's in a magnificent facility, and it would.
Well, it has worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
It's provided a lot of entertainment for people in the community here that wouldn't have if we hadn't got put money into it.
Well, today there must have been
600 children at the Reg listening to a concert.
Is that right?
Yes.
Well, I know we've had quite a few. They have been quite active in working with the youngsters and getting them down there and seeing the presentations and things that have gone on down there.
Real quality act today.
Was it?
Yeah.
Good.
There's a guy named Tom Chapin, who's a nationally known singer. And so they had kids all over the place. So it was really kind of fun to see all the activity downtown.
Yeah.
And,
Well, that's good.
Yeah, that was terrific.
Because that's what Jamestown has needed, something to for the younger generation.
Oh, absolutely. No question about it.
So it
Tell me about your dad taking you to see Babe Ruth. And was it your mother's interest in sports, or?
well, my mother was interested in seeing Babe Ruth every time he was in Cleveland or within shouting distance. So she and I would go to the ballpark.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Now, would you drive or take the train?
I drove before I had a license.
Did you really?
Sure. I used to drive her. She and I would go to Cleveland and see the ball. He said I'd drive the car for the time I was about 14 or 15.
Wow.
We'd go out to the ballpark.
Now, did you ever get to meet Babe Ruth?
Can't remember that I ever did.
Yeah.
But she became very interested in watching him play ball.
Mhm.
So that's why we used to go as often as we could.
Isn't that fun? But it was just Babe Ruth. It wasn't baseball generally. It was
Oh, it was a big Ruth. Yeah.
That's how you got your interest in baseball?
Well, I was interested in it from the time I was a kid.
Mm-hmm. Did you play?
Oh, sandlot
Mhm.
stuff, yeah.
What position did you play?
I used to catch.
Catch?
Yeah.
And did you was there organized leagues then, Reg? Or was it just sort of the kids getting together?
So the kids getting together. We'd start out on Prendergast Avenue near Van Buren Street there, and then we start to have a team and league and stuff. And in those days, you got you had football leagues and things but they were just off the street stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have any coach or anything. We just learned to play among ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Jackson boys were the two that I remember playing with early in the deal, because they were good players and they were good fellows, and we used to have our sandlot leagues there, and then we'd go and have set up games with Mayville and some of the other places around here where we could have some games.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the case of you doing those things yourself. We didn't have anybody that they used to say how did you get a football or how did you get baseball? Well, you came from the people who are those in the area there that were playing, when the kids were playing, and the fathers would help as far as balls and things like that are concerned. Like you have baseball teams. And when you had, as far as football is concerned, when you had good players like the Jackson boys, they didn't only help the high school and have good teams, but we had good teams that we set up ourselves. We'd go around and we had a team that we called the Lakeview Sissies. And, that was Hank Granger and Jack Hablett. And a lot of the fellows like that would get together and practice themselves and then get a schedule with, I know Hank Granger's, his uncle was a dentist, I think, up in Maysville, and he'd help us get games.
I'll be darned.
And we'd go around and have our own league and set up games.
Where would you play? In Jamestown, what was the field you played out of?
Euclid Avenue.
Euclid?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that where you went to grade school, Euclid?
Yeah.
Where was home? Where was your home?
On Prendergast Avenue. Number 1001 Prendergast Avenue was the home base for the Lakeview Sissies. But fellows like Jack Hablett and I can't think of the fellows that used to play with us there, but we had pretty good teams. We would practice regularly.
Mm-hmm.
They had Saturday games. There at the Euclid School lot, and we played against Mayville. I remember some of the teams like that are around here. We have our games set up with them. And somebody would they'd want to know where you'd get the football and stuff to play with, and they keep kidding as long as I could stay on the team and keep playing, or there'd be a football to play. Yeah, those are the days when the kids got together and set up their own leagues and things. They didn't wait to be taken care of by the city or anybody like that. They did it themselves, or some father that was became interested in the team and interested in the school there, where they'd help us along with setting up a team, and that's the way the thing would go.
Did you have a newspaper route? Did you, when you was a kid, did you do any odd jobs? Did you have any jobs?
Oh, I used to take care of my dad's lawn and washing the cars and things like that.
They give you an allowance?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the boys today would think it was pretty small, but they used to give me one.
You remember how much?
25 cents a week.
25 cents? There you go. And that was ample, I'm sure.
It sure was. We got along fine on that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, did your mother work at all? Was she?
No. She was taking care of the kids.
Absolutely. Was she interested in the business?
No. No, she wasn't. No.
Now, did she have family? When she came over here from Sweden, did she bring along any family with her? Was there?
No, some came along a little shortly afterward, but none came over with her at the time she came.
Now, did your dad have any brothers over here in the States? Or sisters?
Yeah. He did. He had a brother here in Jamestown for a good many years, Alec Lenna. And then gradually, while they would leave Sweden when things kept getting tougher over there, they'd leave Sweden and come to the United States, and they would land around Jamestown here, or where in his business if they could, so they'd have someplace to go when they got here. But otherwise, that's about all as far as most days it was a case of coming and living with your relatives till you got started yourself.
Did you have a lot of people staying at your house?
Well, I wouldn't say a lot of people, but we had some. We would find jobs for them and things like that, so that they were able to work and are taken care of. Yeah.
Terrific. You have been so gracious. This has been a lot of fun for me to learn about Reg Lenna.
Well, there wasn't too damn much to learn.
Well, you have had such an impact on this community, Reg, and I don't think the community could say enough to say thank you to you, and you've given an awful lot back. You really have.
You do what you think is right, and that's about all you can do.
You've done it. You really have. This is great. Well, thank you very much.
Well, you're welcome. I'm sorry that I'm not able to be more accurate in the information you have asked me for.
You're wonderful. You kidding me? It's great.